r/AskReddit. What's the most expensive mistake you've ever made? Paying for medical school for my wife who then divorced me at the end of residency. Sounds like my sister who was supported by her ex-husband through law school. He worked at a hardware store in high school, became a manager and eventually a district manager. He isn't fancy or glorious, but he paid 100% of the bills while she went to college and paid for most of her schooling by restoring cars and selling them on the weekends. He worked his ass off, and literally within weeks of her passing the bar exam, she divorced him. He was so confused. She graduated with no college debt and they were set up to have a great life. She ended up marrying a complete a-hole who she suspects might be cheating on her, but hey, he makes a lot more money, so at least she can be miserable in luxury. They drive around everywhere in the nicest and newest automobiles yelling at each other and their kids are miserable too. She is dealing with major depression issues and is a total beach to be around. And the new husband is a psycho who is only talkative or nice when he wants something from you. I still hang out with her ex. He is a great guy. I feel terrible for what she did and I feel bad for you. I hope her new marriage is miserable and causes her soul-crushing depression. Well, my dog ate my underwear once and then I paid $2,000 for her stupid ass to stay alive. The most expensive little piece of shit underwear I ever owned. Similar thing happened to my dog. She took a sock off the drying rack and swallowed it. Cost nearly £1,500 to get her back to normal. She's such a donut. Wasting my $11,000 inheritance on God knows what. I don't even remember. You spend a little here and a little there and next thing you know you're broke and homeless and could really do with a safety net but you were careless and it's now gone with nothing to show for it. I feel that. I have started budgeting and this year I have already spent $2,000 on non-essentials. I don't know how. I don't have these things. Where did the money go? Mainly snacks. Not expensive for me, but for the state. I used to work for the Division of Forestry dispatching firefighters to wildfires. Two roads on opposite end of the county had extremely similar names. Took a call from a guy reporting a fire on White Pine Road. We were already on site for a fire on White Pine Lane. I said, White Pine? We have a crew on the scene already, sir. Came in the next morning and saw that there was a new fire on the map. White Pine Road, 700 acres. Whoops. Used to work at a research lab. Knocked over a cart with $200,000 in samples. This pains me to read. Reminds me of the guy who forgot to refill the liquid nitrogen tank and lost 10 years worth of cell lines. What does this mean? So cell culturing is a big thing. It's basically sped up breeding. You get different strains over time as the cell colonies mutate and so forth. In order to preserve those cells, you freeze them, in this case with liquid nitrogen. This is so you know what cells came from which lines and potentially go back to an earlier branch point if you want to run an experiment with a different strain, among other reasons. But if you don't refill the liquid nitrogen, the cells thaw out and die. 10 years worth of cell culture lines dying out because of that one mistake. Pretty rough. A $4,400 engagement ring. Edit. So hey, I have this really nice engagement ring. If anyone wants to buy it, let me know. I barely dodged that bullet. Several years back I was madly in love and we talked about getting married all the time. One day we even started ring shopping and I had one picked out but hadn't purchased it yet. Then we had a fight and she ducked someone I hated because she knew it would hurt me. She was right too. I didn't get health insurance at work because it was too expensive and then I got 3 different cancers in 1 year. Oops, edit for clarity. Just 3 cancers, not 9. Though I could also add in the benign bone tumor growing into my frontal lobe. This all happened at 26 years old in the good old US of A. Cancer is all in remission now. Medicare for all. $1,000 couch from a furniture store that was going out of business. It fell apart in a year. I have one of these going out of business places near me. They've had those signs up for years. Bought a franchise. Lost around $250,000 and had to sell my house. It was an awful time in my life. Subway? Nope. It was a tech business. It demonstrated perfectly that being great at IT does not transfer to being great at sales. allowing my ex to convince me to get rid of my great running vehicle in favor of a newer one to build credit so we could get a house together. That was June 2015. I paid nearly $400 a month. Hardly any $ for fun until June 2019. We got the house. Then she cheated and left. And now it could get foreclosed. LOL. 12 years ago I fell asleep at the wheel while working my job 8 AM after having been working already for 4 hours. I was on a country road, went into the ditch and hit a culvert that flipped me 5 times as I went back across the road the other way. Truck was totaled obviously, and I destroyed a row of hedges on someone's property. I'm not sure the total damage but the company's insurance covered it all. Definitely over $30 G's though. I came out with no injuries. No other vehicles or people involved, beyond the owner of the hedges, who came out and helped me call 911. Super lucky, and now I would never drive that tire ever again. Selling my free-to-me stock options for $500 when leaving a tiny company that was later acquired by an international monster. I refuse to calculate their current market value. Please do it. It'll be funny for us strangers and make us feel better about our own duck-ups. If I sold today, $250, $840, W out commission and fees. A few years ago, I was working at a media production facility situated on a large industrial lot. The person who owned the lot was letting his friends, a hippie couple, park their bus home near the back of the site, which was where my studio was. The people who associated with our facility were generally well-connected, trustworthy, successful people, so I didn't think much about it, and I became friends with the couple over the course of a year. I found out they couldn't leave the lot because their bus wasn't repairable. One day, the boyfriend told me they found the perfect bus for sale, so I drove with him out to the lot where it was being sold and inspected it with him. The problem was he and his GF wouldn't be getting paid for a couple weeks, and they needed to confirm the purchase in a few days or the owner was going to sell it to someone else. You can probably see where this is going. The boyfriend asked me if I could float them $1,000 until their next payday to buy the bus and to get the old one towed away from the space next to my studio. I had just been paid decently for a project and had become good friends with the couple by this point, so I said yes. The boyfriend offered to give me a broken old motorcycle as collateral, which I appreciated but told him to just get me the money the following week. When I returned to work the next day, their old bus had been towed but there was no new bus in its place, just a decrepit motorcycle leaning against the fence. I tried to get a hold of the couple but my messages went unanswered, calls went to voicemail, and eventually their number was disconnected. I sent a message to their joint Facebook account and after a month or so they replied, saying that the motorcycle was the trade we agreed on for the $1,000. There were some angry messages back and forth but it was pointless. They skipped town, cut contact with the owner of the property, and I never saw them again. There's a Bruce Springsteen interview, I think it was with Mark Maron, where he tells a story about getting swindled in New York after a show. He said it forced him to reassess the energy he was putting out into the world, since it had made him such an easy target to be taken advantage of. Needless to say, I had to make the same reassessment about myself. Too long didn't we got grifted for $1,000 by damn dirty hippies. I am a gem dealer and usually deal in fine colored stones. Lost $850k worth of emeralds in an exhibition while walking around with my friend. The emeralds were in my pocket in a plastic zipper and they were never seen. I can't even comprehend the anxiety you must have felt when you realized it wasn't in your pocket. Forgetting to put out a candle before leaving for work in the morning. That must have been an expensive candle. Oh. I used to flip houses. One day there were all 2 houses in a really good neighborhood. One needed minor cosmetic improvements like carpet paint and fixtures. Another investor also wanted it so it was settled by a coin flip and I lost. I was determined to get one. So I made the mistake of buying the second house. It needed a complete down to the studs renovation like you see on HGTV. It was much more complicated than any previous project I'd done. And it kicked my $. 6 months later after working 6 days a week, fighting with contractors and city inspectors I sold it for $0 profit. Last flip ever. TLDR. I bought the wrong house to flip and wasted 6 months of my life for zero profit. I put my now ex-girlfriend's name on the deed of the house I bought. She's turned out to be an abusive and miserable person and cost me tens of thousands of dollars. I did a beer run for 25 people in my first year at uni. Everyone gave me cash, so I had like $400 in my wallet. I didn't have my own cash however, so I paid for the lot on card. Lost my wallet before I even got home. I was fairly upset. Fence. Met this girl. Fell in love. Moved into her house. She wanted to fence the yard. I wanted her to be happy. We had a very nice fence installed. It was financed. We were saving up money every month to pay the fence off and it would have been 0% interest. Everything was working great. Then she cheated on me and gave me chlamydia. I saw her trying to put antibiotics into my food is how I found out. Then I moved out. Then she took half of our savings account, which was already ducked up because I put way more than half in there, but if that's the price it takes to get her out of my life, fine. Then she says she isn't going to have enough to pay off the fence within the 0% interest period. Because she took half the savings I also don't have enough. But it's in my name. So I was left holding the bag on a fence I did not own. I paid it off last year, but the whole thing ended up costing an insane amount of money. Duck her. Duck chlamydia. Duck cool guys who do piercing for a living and drive G35s while living in their mom's basement. And duck fences. Sold a house that I was renting out and covering expenses. Wanted to get in before the taxes increased. House appreciated significantly more than what I would have paid in taxes over the next few years. Probably missed out on at least $200,000 of gain. Had to sell within the first 3 years of moving out to eliminate taxes on the first $500,000 of gains over the purchase price. I lived in it long enough to see the value go up significantly. Trusted my wife, now ex, with my $110,000 a salary that she spent and gave away over $55,000 over the last 4 years of our marriage. I am now having my checks garnished for bills she never paid while we were married. This is my worst nightmare and fear, honestly. I was in a hotel, took some sleeping pills right before taking a shower, turned the water on to let it warm up. I wake up several hours later and the floor is soaked. I was on the 7th floor. Estimate was around $30,000 in damage. That doesn't include all the room changes for everyone below me. Hold on, that's a shower, and the plug wouldn't have gone down to stop the water from leaving. So I am calling bullshit on the hotel's part for ducking up their plug thingy for baths. Getting into Magic the Gathering. Try MTG Arena. I have been playing for about 6 months now and love it. Hadn't played Magic in over 10 years and immediately jumped back into it. I haven't had to spend a dime on it. Everything is free unless you want the higher level hats. No more keeping up with tokens, life totals, or the meta. The game keeps up with everything for you, so games are much faster. The most expensive mistake was buying a 1920s house. It was architecturally significant, with all the bells and whistles, but it was a money pit, always needing expensive repairs to remedy complicated problems. In the end, we had to sell the house for less than its original purchase price, and all the many thousands on repairs and improvements were lost. In 1996, I accidentally and permanently deleted a manuscript that I'd spent 3 years writing. I do. Buying a Nintendo Wii U in 2013. It sucks even more when you realize that Nintendo has basically been porting all the good Wii U games to the Switch because of how much of a colossal failure it was. Investing in pyramid scheme. Co-signing a childhood friend on opening a business. Underwater 100k. Dave, I swear these cuboid ping pong balls are gonna take off big time. My first marriage. Supported my ex-wife for 8 years through quitting her job, getting her master's degree, starting her own non-profit organization, mostly funding that organization for years, just to have her cheat and leave. Oh, and divorce is truly the gift that keeps on giving. After finding her a 6-figure job post-split, she wouldn't look for work on her own. She continued demanding child support exceeding state guidelines, insisted I pay for transportation if I wanted to see my kids, conned me into taking our house back. She got it in the divorce, decided she didn't want it, and bought a new house with her new husband before selling the old one, and figured she'd make that my problem, and then forced me to sue her for custody when I finally moved close enough to spend more time with the kids, even though we had specifically written that into our divorce agreement. If I only count from the day she asked me to leave, we're probably looking at well over $250,000. If I go all the way back to shore, honey, you can quit your job and follow your dreams. I'll support you no matter what. Then we can probably triple that. Make damn sure you're marrying the right person. I was working at a payroll company, doing the night printing of checks for about 120 companies. Some small offices, some universities. I knocked the signer off the stand by accident, breaking it, delaying everyone's pay by a day. It was temporarily expensive to a lot of people, and the check signer was busted, which was not a cheap machine. We then had to rubber stamp sign 10,000 checks. You wouldn't think you could use up all the ink pads in an office. I used bleach to wash a custom made $350 outfit that I use for work. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.